Hey Spuds, it's Jamie. Welcome back to another video. First video on the channel, I don't know, but welcome either way. I'm very glad to have you here for this more personal video today. Today we are talking all about me. All about a surgery that I had. Essentially, little backstory. I had metoidioplasty surgery, which is a type of bottom surgery available for transmasc people, back in 2018, January 2018, and then about a year and a half later, I had the second stage, and I have not had any further surgery since then. Every so often, I revisit the topic, I share things, I give little updates and stuff. Something I've not done in a while is a Q&A to see what people are interested in now that I'm 6 years post my final surgery related to lower surgery and my final trans-related surgery, at least for the foreseeable future. So I asked you Spuds to send me in some questions that you had about my experience and the results and everything like that, and I am going to answer the ones that I'm comfortable with because I do still have boundaries of what I keep private, even though it might feel like I share a lot. There is a lot of stuff I also don't share. I'm going to talk in as much detail as I feel comfortable to, and hopefully it's useful information. So are you ready to learn all about my penis and my experience of getting it? Sorry. These are in no particular order. I probably should have gone through them and ordered them nicely so that they were grouped and made sense, but that's just not the kind of person I am. Sorry. So, how long did it take to heal? Longer than it should have because I had complications. I'd say it was very not fun for me for about 3 to 4 weeks. 2 weeks in particular were basically bedbound, literally only getting up to go to the toilet. And the first week that was only for a number 2. I had a catheter that I was using, and then when I went home they turned it into a flip flow so I could void myself. So I was getting up to do that, but really like mostly bedbound for 2 weeks. And then the 2 weeks after that I was very bruised, very tender, and my mobility was very limited. So like even going up the stairs was difficult. I couldn't step into the bath to have a shower, things like that. I'd say like more fully healed, like back to kind of quote unquote normal for me, was more like the 6 to 8 week mark. And then it took several months for all the swelling to settle down. And I think it can take longer than even several months for swelling to settle down completely. But after about 3 months, it got to that point where it was so gradual that I didn't notice. But I'd say that I was back doing regular activities, driving, running, going up and down the stairs, stepping into the bathtub, things like that after 2 months. It's not the most fun healing experience, I'm not gonna lie. It was worse for me because of complications, but even without that, it's not the most fun. It's a very sensitive area. Best part of the experience and worst part besides the complication. Best part of the experience, getting a penis, has to be hands down the best bit. The worst, the catheter. Honestly, that wasn't anything to do with complications. The catheter was horrible, getting the drain pulled out, and getting any kind of tubing removed. Awful. The drain tubing was so freaking, I swear it was the length of my leg, just coiled up in my groin area. It was awful. If I think about it too hard, I can still feel it coming out, so we're not going to do that. And then the catheter was the next worst, but actually not coming out, just having it in. That came out after 2 weeks for me. I did have it in for a bit longer, and the moment that was removed, I felt like I healed 50% just by having the catheter out. My mobility increased, my pain reduced, there wasn't like constant tugging and just this like thick tube in my urethra. Awful. And I could just pee regularly. It was brilliant. So yeah, best part, the result and what I was going in for. Also just like seeing how much my wife and my family were there to support me and stuff, and the fact that it actually really helped my wife's mum accept me because she saw how difficult it was for me to go through and all of this stuff. That's a story for another day, but like that's kind of like a secondary best to the actual result. And then the worst was tubing. How much sensation did you get back? I'd say it's slightly different with meta because they're not creating anything new. It's all created with things that you've got going on already, so things aren't really like detached or grafted. I personally would say I've got 100% sensation, I think, and like at worst I think maybe like high 80s to 90% in some areas where there's more scarring, but I haven't had any sensation loss to the point where I can notice it, if that makes sense. I think with phallo it can be a lot more variable, and phalloplasty is the other type of lower surgery for transmasc people where a phallus is created from a skin graft from another area of the body, such as the forearm or the thigh. This could be a stupid question, I doubt it. How invasive is the aftercare for the surgery, like the checkups, as well as what do the checkups for lower surgery entail? That's really not a stupid question at all. It's a question I've never been asked, and I'm actually very up for speaking about it. I feel like, as you can imagine, the aftercare for that kind of surgery feels really vulnerable. So like obviously you've got the surgeons that seal your bits whilst they're doing it, but you're asleep so you don't notice. But then then in the hospital, and I think this would happen even if you didn't have complications, I had slightly more people and more times where people were touching things and dealing with things and prodding and poking me. But even if you didn't didn't have complications, you're going to have people changing your dressings and checking that things like the catheter are working and removing the drain. And just because in that area, it's all very personal. People see everything, basically. There were moments where I was literally like, the gown was pulled to one side and everything was pulled off so that people could inspect and check that dressings were good. And as somebody who is like, I'm never nude.
You're never nude?
It's just not my natural state of being, despite it being very natural, which is weird, but I always like to at least be wearing underwear. I won't just walk around the house naked. It did feel really, really invasive personally, but I didn't really have like checkups afterwards. It was just making sure that everything was healing well in the hospital, and then I was kind of sent on my merry way. The one checkup I had was 2 weeks post-op to get the catheter removed, which again felt very vulnerable, and it was a very intimate area, and I didn't enjoy the experience. Everybody's different though. I don't know how you deal with that, and that was the only real checkup I had. Other than that, it would just be contacting the surgeon or the hospital if you have any issues post-op. The other thing that happened with me that felt very invasive and I did feel embarrassed about and I wasn't sure how to approach it is there was a moment where I thought there was maybe a little bit of an infection because there was something yellow and there was like lots of redness and it felt a bit hot. Turned out to just be a dissolvable stitch, and the redness and hotness was just because healing, but it was still worth getting checked out, and the hospital told me to go get it checked out. So I went to a local doctor who'd never seen a trans patient before, as far as they were aware, and had never seen metoidioplasty results before, and like was perfectly polite, but legit I felt like an alien. I felt like somebody was like,
oh, what do I do with this? Oh my god.
Like, and he was more freaked out than I was in that moment. That probably was the worst. Not in terms of pain, but just in terms of vulnerability. So I feel like the beginning bit of the aftercare, you're kind of so out of it and groggy from things like the anesthetic, you don't even notice, and you just kind of like get over it at some point. But then it's like the after bits that I found quite confrontational, and then my wife had to change my dressings like daily, which that was fine. But I guess if you didn't have a partner and you couldn't do it yourself, you'd need to ask somebody to do it for you. In retrospect, is there anything you would have done differently regarding bottom surgery, e.g. different type of procedure, different approach to letting it heal, etc.? No, personally not. Occasionally I have moments where I'm like, oh, maybe I could have got urethral lengthening. That might have been a fun thing to have, but it wasn't something that caused me enough dysphoria or something that I wanted in my life enough to warrant the extra stage of surgery. And most of the complications with metoidioplasty come from issues with the urethral graft, so it wasn't worth it to me. But that is like the one little moment where sometimes I'm like, oh, it would have been nice if I could click my fingers and have it. I would, but I can't, so it's not worth it. Does it look how you would like it to look? Yes. I'm actually very happy with the aesthetics. What were the risks of complications, and did you experience any? Do you feel like the procedure was worth those risks? There are risks of complications with any surgery, and I had a complication that can happen with any surgery. It was not specific to my surgery. This is what I was told. The surgeon caught an artery in my groin, or like a main vessel or something, and it was like spurting in, because everything was closed up. It started like swelling, and I got a lot of pressure, and it led to like a hematoma and stuff like this that had to be squeezed out, and I had to go in for an emergency second surgery, and when they pulled the dressing out, like blood spurted, and it was a lot. But that, you know, you can get hematomas and blood things like that with any type of surgery. If people are investigating inside your body, there is a risk. So I did experience complication. Yes, there are always risks of complication with any surgery. There are some that are slightly more specific to lower surgeries, but also are kind of relevant to any type of genital surgery, like urethral issues and stuff like that. For me, absolutely, the procedure definitely outweighed the risks. Even in hindsight, it was not a fun time of my life, but I would do it again given the outcome. What did you feel when you first woke up after surgery? Hot, really sweaty, really boiling, toasty warm, because they put me in some hot blanket, and I just remember being really hot, boiling, absolutely boiling. And then I felt a bit sick, and then I felt a bit in pain, and then I went, oh, thank God it's done. That was kind of the general gist of how I felt. And then they gave me anti-sickness medication, and it made me very woozy, and the wall started moving. So that was fun.
They just gave me some stuff for it, but now I feel all like,
How was the initial first week or so of recovery? What helped the most for recovery comfort wise? First week was awful. I was in hospital. I'm not going to count that as my first week. My first week home recovering was also awful. What helped? Having everything within reach where I could be lying in bed but still reach like my phone, liquids, a book, a snack, entertainment like TV remote, things like that. Actually taking the painkillers really helped comfort wise. Like I noticed if I was a bit late with taking them one day because everything started to feel a lot more painful, and then I would take them and it actually really helped. So I would recommend, if you were sent home with painkillers, take them. Don't like grit your teeth and bear it. Like if you don't have to, then don't do that. And then also just accepting that I had just had surgery and I needed to be in bed and take it easy. That definitely helped. Setting up camp as close to a bathroom as possible so that whenever I had to go or even do things like brush my teeth, I didn't have to go that far or I didn't have to take any steps. But yeah, the first week home was a lot. Like I barely made it up the stairs to my bedroom. I considered sleeping on the sofa for the first couple of days because of how difficult it was to do the first couple steps. And then I was like, no, I can do this really slowly. And then I didn't go back downstairs for a while. And then obviously, I do think with this type of surgery, you are gonna need to have somebody, a partner, a friend, a family member, somebody live with you for, I'd say at least a week, really, to help you out. Did you feel like your transition was complete after the surgery and dysphoria was gone, or do you still experience it? If so, how did getting the surgery change it? Okay, let's do complete and then we'll talk about dysphoria. As far as feeling that my transition was complete, after I had the second stage, which was where they put the testicular implants in, my brain went, I'm done with surgeries. The only other surgery I'd ever get would be if I were told certain things were medically necessary, at which point I'd kind of detach it from the whole trans thing and I'd just be like, my doctor is telling me my body needs something, rather than me having this deep feeling of discomfort and need within me to do something. It's not coming from within me that I would do that, if that makes sense. So I felt complete surgery wise. Transition wise, my feeling complete and done, which not everybody will feel because it's a very personal thing, but I did feel like there was an end point to my transition. It's when I got my new birth certificate.
Congratulations on your gender recognition certificate.
So finishing surgeries definitely started the ball rolling on me feeling like things were getting to the end. And then I got my birth certificate about 6 months after my final surgery. And that I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. All within the same year. Done. That was a very good feeling. In terms of dysphoria, if I'm honest, I knew that I really needed to get lower surgery because of dysphoria and just what I wanted to achieve with my body and how I wanted to feel in my body. But I didn't expect lower surgery to have as much impact on my dysphoria as top surgery, and it didn't. But it nearly did. It had a lot more of an impact on my dysphoria than I ever thought it would, which was quite cool. Like, I kind of went in really looking forward to getting it done, very apprehensive, obviously, about having another surgery, feeling like this was going to be the beginning of the end for me. And I think I actually say that in my lower surgery vlog after first stage, that it feels like the beginning of the end in a really like positive way. And it definitely wasn't something I would have gone through if I didn't feel like I needed to do it for me. But I did not expect it to have the impact on my life that it's had. And it sounds really bizarre. And I think that's why I didn't expect it, because even saying it, I'm like, oh, it seems like just such a kind of smaller thing compared to testosterone, which changed so much about me physically and visibly. And then top surgery, which allows me so much more physical and emotional freedom in terms of not having to bind and then just like not having my chest there anymore, right? And being able to go shirtless at the beach and things like that. It's got a lot more like public facing effect that other things that I've done. Whereas lower surgery, that was very much just for me. Like obviously everything was just for me and what I needed to do for myself, but lower surgery was the one thing that didn't also have like this outward facing element of change for anybody else other than the obvious. I think that's part of the reason why I didn't expect it to have so much of a difference, because it wouldn't impact that much about my day-to-day life that testosterone and top surgery had, but it had a massive impact on my dysphoria. I don't think I realized how avoidant I still was of looking at myself when I showered and mirrors when I was showering, because that is nearly pretty much one of the very only times I am naked and like getting changed and just generally like allowing myself to look down when I wasn't wearing clothes. And then the appearance in underwear, I didn't realize how much I had kind of started blocking that out and just ignoring it, with the discomfort and the dysphoria like seeping through. And then I had metoidioplasty, and once it had healed, obviously, I was like, oh wow, no, I've really just not been thinking about this because I felt so shitty about it. And now I can think about it. I'm realizing how freeing that is, that I look in the mirror and I'm comfortable, and I'm not just comfortable, but I like what I see, and I just feel so much more confident about my body, and I like the way it looks, and it's fun. Like, I don't know, just it changed so much. And my dysphoria has kind of like been been on a gradual decline, and then every time I've taken a big step in my physical transition. So I started testosterone and it kind of went boom, and then I got top surgery and it went boom, and then I had lower surgery and it went boom. And like, I describe it as like a grain of sand compared to the beach that it used to be, as in my level of dysphoria.
It's the beginning of the close of the physical side of my transition.
A lot of the discomfort I have over my body now is actually nothing to do with me being trans, genuinely. I have some level of discomfort over my body shape and like where my fat is stored. However, the cis men in my family have the exact same body shape and fat storing areas as me. It would have very likely been the case for me if I had been a cis man, and I probably would have felt some level of discomfort. So I'm learning how to detach discomfort from dysphoria and like general body feelings and wanting things to be different about my body to it being linked to being trans, because not everything I'm uncomfortable about with my body is because I'm trans. So really this did kind of knock dysphoria on the head quite a lot. Were you nervous, and did you have second thoughts before/after? Honestly, when things started going wrong and shit hit the fan with the whole hematoma and that blood was just bleh, yeah, I was like, what the hell have I done to myself? Like, what am I putting myself through? Is this worth it?
I was kind of questioning, why have I put myself through this? This is horrible. This is painful.
But it was very fleeting. It is worth it. As I said, I would do it again. I don't know how many times again, but definitely once more if I had to. So no genuine second thoughts after. Before, I was not looking forward to the experience of surgery. Nobody is, right? But I hated getting top surgery. I hated the nausea from the anesthetic, and it made me throw up, and I have like emetophobia, and that really freaked me out and put me off. And I think I definitely delayed pursuing lower surgery for longer because of how much I did not like the experience of going under anesthetic. It wasn't really about the pain and the healing. It was specifically the anesthetic feeling and the grogginess and the disorientation and the nausea and the throwing up and everything that was just like, whoa, I don't want to do that again. So I was very, very nervous beforehand. I felt like I went into top surgery, never having had a surgery before, very naive. Knowing, like, generally being told what could happen and knowing the risks and knowing what could go wrong, but not really thinking about it in too much depth in terms of like what anesthetic could do and how that might interact with anxieties I have. That definitely threw me a lot. So I was going into getting lower surgery, not naive. And in hindsight, going in naive was definitely somewhat easier. But then there were other elements that made being prepared feel easier. In the end, they gave me some really good anti-nausea pills. Like as soon as I said I was starting to feel sick, I couldn't eat very much, but I did not have the same level of nausea and I did not throw up like I did. I like gagged, but I'm sorry. It was not as bad. And so I was actually pleasantly surprised at that element. So yes, I was nervous. I didn't have second thoughts, but I was very apprehensive going in just generally. And then I didn't have any serious second thoughts after. Is it worth it? 100% for me, it was worth it. Like 1,000% for me. It was absolutely worth it. Yeah. What made you choose metoidioplasty over phalloplasty? Honestly, there was multiple things. I think number one for me was scarring. I just personally did not want to have the level of scarring that phalloplasty leaves, whether that be on my leg or my forearm. Number two was I didn't care enough about size to warrant that level of scarring and the somewhat more intense healing of phalloplasty compared to metoidioplasty. And then aesthetically, I saw posts of people who'd had metoidioplasty and some who'd had phalloplasty, and this isn't to diss the phallo results at all. This is just a very personal feeling to me. I preferred the aesthetic of the meta results because it's created using your pre-existing junk. I feel like it looks like a very natural, like penis and testicles, but just the penis is smaller, whereas phallo felt a bit more hit and miss on how it looked because the skin is taken from elsewhere. It's not the typical skin you'd find in that area. So there's just like lots of elements, and this is genuinely completely my personal feelings and personal choice. This does not reflect at all on whether I think one surgery is better than another generally, because I really don't. I think there are pros and cons to both. It just so happened that the pros of meta were more important to me than the pros of phallo, and that's why I went for it. I have no regrets over that choice. If I could have exactly what I've got now but average size, that would be ideal, but that would be basically a cis penis. So if they ever find a surgeon surgery that means I can have that without having a graft, then great, I will probably look into it. But right now I'm very happy with what I've got and I'm very happy with my decision, but everybody's got to look into it for themselves, and fallow will absolutely be the subjectively better choice for somebody else, and meta will be subjectively the better choice for another person, you know? And then neither will be the better choice for others. It's, you know, it's all about you. How do you get over the anxiety of having it, like having the surgery? I didn't. I genuinely didn't. I was just kind of scared the whole lead up and the whole time and everything. And I remember like my heart beating so fast on the drive down, and then when I changed into my gown and when I got wheeled off and everything, and the closer I got, the more nervous I got. One piece of advice I'd give you, but I've just heard a lot about dealing with things that are scary or feel really big and overwhelming, is don't think too far ahead. Obviously, in the lead up, when you are considering what you want to do, consider the whole process, the healing, potential risks, everything. Like, give it thought, be aware, right? I'm not saying don't pay attention, but when it comes to the lead up and you have decided you're doing this and you know it's what you want to do and you don't want to back out and you are 100% confident on that, just think about the next step. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to think about the fact that I need to pack my bag, get in the car, drive to London, go to the hospital, have surgery, be in the hospital for a few nights, come home, deal with the healing at home, go get the catheter removed and all of this. I literally just went, I need to pack my bag. That's all I need to do right now. And then the morning it was like, I need to get in the car and we're going on a little trip. We're going on a little drive to a hospital. And then we got the hospital and it's like, okay, I got to have this like antiseptic shower thing, put a gown on and go to bed. That's it. And then it's just like one step at a time. Like in the morning, you let the nurses know stuff and they come and talk to you and you get your little cannula put in, and it was all just taking it bite-sized pieces at a time until it was done, and that made it somewhat easier. Did you consider fallow or were you always set on meta? I really should have put this with the other meta versus fallow thing. I was always 90% set on meta right from the offset, like right from learning the difference between the two surgeries, but I did allow myself like that exploration into what if I got fallow, what would that look like for me? Am I sure that this isn't the right one for me? Blah blah blah. So I did let myself consider it, but I think I was always pretty confident on meta because the differences in them are quite big, like between the surgeries, both in terms of results, procedure, and what you're left with after in terms of both like the results downstairs and also scarring and stuff. So it was pretty set for me, but you know, if people need to deliberate, that's fine. Is it wrong if I don't want it as a trans man? Not at all. Like literally not at all. It wouldn't be wrong if as a trans man you didn't want testosterone or you didn't want top surgery. Like of course there's nothing wrong with not wanting lower surgery. Not only is it an incredibly invasive and difficult surgery to have, it's just not for everybody. And so for some people it's because they don't have a huge amount of dysphoria over that area. For other people it's because the results of the surgery wouldn't alleviate that dysphoria, because if your pros list of getting lower surgery does not match with either meta or fallow, and I know some trans guys who are like, I would love to have a penis, but just both the surgery options out there I know would not leave me feeling satisfied, so aren't worth putting my body through right now. So there can be multiple different reasons, from you wanting some form of lower surgery but just not feeling like there's the right option for you at the moment, to literally not wanting it at all. Whatever stages of transition, whatever processes of transition you do are the right ones for you, and they don't make you any more or less trans. How long did the overall process take on the NHS? So I started testosterone and had top surgery privately, so I was never with an NHS clinic initially, so my timeline is being based on having to have an initial assessment before I could then discuss referrals, so it might be slightly different. It was also coming up to 10 years ago. The wait lists are incredibly different, so I don't know how accurate this is going to be, but I will just walk you through my timeline, and if anybody has had a more recent experience of a similar pathway but in the last couple years, please feel free to comment it down below to add to it, and I'll try and like heart it so that it can get higher if I see somebody's done that. So for me, I went and spoke to my GP, which is the general practitioner. It's your local doctor in the UK, and they're the ones that can make referrals to places. I went to speak to my GP who knew I was trans, and she was the one who did my prescribing of testosterone and stuff, and she was great. She didn't know everything, but she was really willing to just learn and listen to what I needed and do what was required basically. So I said in October 2015, hello, I would like to be referred to an NHS gender clinic so that I can pursue lower surgery, please. And so she sent off my referral in October 2015, and then this is where it gets a little bit fuzzy, because I then had 2 appointments at Charing Cross Gender Identity Clinic. No, sorry, I had 3 appointments. I had an initial assessment to make sure I was sure about being trans. And at this point, I'd been on testosterone for like over 5 years by the time I had the appointment, or coming up to 5. And I'd had top surgery, and I was like, I'm very sure. I'm here for lower surgery. I'm sure I am trans. Hello. So I had the initial assessment, and then I needed 2 more appointments so that 2 people could do me independent referrals on for lower surgery. I cannot remember the timeline. I had those appointments at some point from mid 2016 to mid 2017 was the kind of timeline. It was over 6 months before I got my first appointment. It could have been a year, and then the appointments were quite close together. But discussing the fact that I got an appointment in around a year with an NHS gender clinic is a timeline that should be too long anyway, but is actually now what we can only dream of being at, because the wait lists are incredibly long. I've heard of them being 6 years plus in some areas. So I'm saying this with like a massive caveat of recognizing my privilege and my luck in the situation at the timing of when I transitioned. The appointment timeline is hazy, but from referral to gender clinic in October 2015, then it took 2 years before I started being offered dates. I was offered my first date in November 2017, but I couldn't make it. And then again, a month later in December, I couldn't do it again because we were moving house. And then I had it on the 5th or the 8th of January 2018. So it took 2 years and 3 months between initial referral to a gender clinic and me having lower surgery. Bearing in mind that the wait list for gender clinics was significantly shorter back then, and the wait lists for surgery was significantly shorter back then. Underfunding, transphobia, and COVID has just made those wait lists grow exponentially. And I honestly wish nothing but the best and speediest process for everybody currently waiting. And all I can say is it's worth the wait. It is worth hanging on for. I know how difficult it feels, even though I didn't have to wait for as long. I know what the waiting feels like, and you will get there, and I hope you get there as soon as possible. So yes, that's my rough timeline. I also did see several questions asking me how much it costs. I don't know, because in the UK, it is a surgery that is offered on the NHS, and I actually have no idea. I think maybe 10 years ago, I might have looked into it, and I saw that you could get it starting from like £8,000 to £10,000, but I could be way off in both my memory and where that number would be now. So yeah, I'm sorry I can't be of more help with that one. Final question. What was your personal biggest benefit of it? Just that being my body now and enjoying the way it looks. That's been the biggest thing. Just feeling comfortable, just feeling at home, recognizing that my body is not perfect and there are things about surgery that I wish could be better and different, but it's not currently at that stage. So for what I could get, I am incredibly happy and incredibly grateful and infinitely more comfortable in my body. And that's the biggest benefit. It's just a personal feeling of being at home in my own skin and liking what I see. Yay! That's it. That's all the questions. I really appreciate you asking them. I so appreciate the respect that everybody had with asking those questions. And if I didn't answer your question, I won't have been offended by it. Some of them were too personal, but I'm not upset that anybody asked that, because I invited those questions in and I was open to being asked anything, and then it's my choice what I'm comfortable with answering. So these were the ones I'm comfortable answering. If anything else pops up, if I see other ones, because I might have also missed ones that I would have been comfortable, it is something that I revisit periodically, so I'm sure I will do a follow-up. And also, just for anybody new or anybody that doesn't see this video at the time, I will do another one in several years' time. Maybe not that long, but you know what, there will be an update. I really hope this was useful. I hope you could learn a couple things, whether you're trans or not. And yeah, I wish you all the best. I don't know why I said that. If you like the video, think about giving a thumbs up and subscribing if you want to, but no pressure. You'll also see some lovely, beautiful, wonderful names going up the screen right now. They are my wonderful Patreons. You can support me over on Patreon. It's basically some extra content. It's where you can financially support creators that you enjoy watching and get access to extra little bits and pieces from them if you so wish to. But again, there's no pressure. But I do want to say a massive thank you to my top tier Patreons: Albar, Chloe, Elden K, Gosco, Iona Balash, Jesse Entwistle, Marv Mallow, Max Makes Mods, Night Soul, Nesta, Rachel Raptor, Randy, River Champagne, Rye Loves Rory, Sienna Lamb, Slayer, Sugar Joe, The Third Hat Man, TNS Mum, Sally Drew, and Sarah Hobbs. Thank you so much. Thank you again so much. It really does help me keep creating this kind of content, and so I really appreciate it. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Much love. Bye.